We're back and we have a new pattern. So this time of year, and if you're watching, it is September now, I like to make what I call my craft fair go-to bags. So these bags look good, but they're also super fast and don't take up much material, which for me is perfect for craft fairs. So this is Percy. So Percy focuses on the top stitching. So it's all about the stitching, baby. And then inside we have a zipper pocket. You can add a slip pocket if you wish. This is Percy. And I have to show you this one because I love it so much. I have taken the pattern and I have used a piece of Harris tweed for the flap instead. So I've used the lining, the pattern piece for the lining. So I've got two the same, there's no join. And I have to show you this one because, oh my god, it is stunning. If I do say so myself, this is my absolute most favourite bag I think I've done. So we have angled connectors so that it fits around the bag super nicely. This is Percy. And let's get to it. So first things first is get your strap out of the way. And it's always good to cut your strap out of the fabric first. That way you know you've got enough fabric for it. It's no good cutting all these shapes and bits and then trying to fit your strap in after. No. Cut your strap out first, then fit the pieces in after. But get this done out of the way, then it's done. We all hate straps. Get it done. I'm not showing you how to make it. There is a video on how to make straps in the playlist. Okay, so if you go to the playlist, you'll find a video on how to make straps. They're all the same, they're all good. Get that done, nicely out of the way. So after you've made your strap and you've popped it to the side, we want to move on to the outer body, which when complete looks something a little like this. Now I've used a pop of colour on my stitching because I am not of the majority, is the word I'm looking for. I actually love top stitching, but also because I'm using rose gold hardware, I've gone for a matching stitch colour. So when I'm constructing, I'm going to use a green, like an olive green, for the main construction, but for the top stitching I've picked a colour that is going to pop. You don't have to, but that is what I'm doing. And then this doesn't look out of place then. It all ties in nicely. So this is what we're heading for. And to do this, we need 3 pieces. So we've got outer body middle, outer body right, side, no, outer body right, outer body left. When constructed, will look like the piece I've just shown you. But for now, I'm going to focus on these two. We're going to fit them on top of each other. And using a seam allowance, I'm going to sew them together down this long side edge. Feel free to pin or clip them together if you wish. But sew them together using seam allowance. Like so. And you will notice that I am sewing off camera just because this phone that I'm filming with now can't keep up with the LED light and it flickers and we don't want that. So all sewing will be going on off screen, but trust me, there's nothing to see. So I've sewn them together, and hopefully using this lovely colour you can actually see what I've done. And then all we do is take this right piece and open up the seam. So all seam allowances are pointing towards the side, and if your fabric allows you can give this a press, otherwise give it a smush, do what you can do. And we're going to top stitch on this side, whoops, not like that, in a nice straight line, this side of the seam, and that's just going to hold the seam allowances in place. It looks good, but it serves a little purpose too. Like that. And we're going to do the same again for the other side piece. So we've got our outer body left, and again we're going to flip it and stitch it. So sew them together using regular seam allowance, then open up the seam and top stitch like so. So all seam allowances are facing towards the sides, and we've got this beautiful top stitching. Now mine looks slightly wider than your top stitching might be. That's just because I use the edge of my foot. I've got like just under 1/4 inch. With top stitching, it doesn't have to be exactly 1/8, 2/8, you know, a couple of mils, whatever makes you happy. And I like to use the side of my narrow foot or my Teflon foot, and then I get a nice edge each time. So we have 2 identical outer panels. We will have once you do the same again. And we need to now make the outer flap, and then we can do our foam. So with the outer flap, take your 2 outer flap pieces and lay them like so. And then, as we did previously, we're going to flip them right sides together. And then you have this long side edge, so not the angled edge, this long side edge. We are going to pin or clip together if you wish, and then sew them together using regular seam allowance. Like that. And whereas on the body we push the seams to one side, this time we're going to open them up. Now again, you can press if your fabric allows, otherwise you're going to have to smush it, hold it, do whatever works best for you, and top stitch both sides of this seam just to hold the seam allowances in place. So again, it's a functional stitch, if that's the right word, but it also is going to look real good. Like so. So it's a nice feature, and it serves the purpose of holding our seam allowance open. So now we've done these 3 pieces, we can now go ahead and move on to adding the foam. So I have put the foam measurements in 2 parts. One measurement was for the body pieces, one was for the flap, purely because it is an odd shape, and I don't want wastage. So whatever works for you and whatever you buy, try and just work it to the best you can. So I have pre-cut these, so they do look a bit funky, but I will explain all in just a jiffy. Now, the body pieces are the only ones that we really have to trim away. So if I show you from the back, I've got the 2 points that make up the box corners. There's 2 on each side. We need to trim the foam away from these. We don't want extra foam in the seam allowance. It's not going to help. We don't need it. And again, I have trimmed away the foam from the top corners as well. So literally all I've done is peeled that back, cut some away. All I've done. It doesn't have to be a huge amount. It's just enough that when we stitch this to that piece and then fold it over and top stitch at the end, we're just adding layers and layers that we don't need. The flap is good as it is. I'm just putting a couple in here for a second. But if your fabric is thick, you can by all means just cut little like thumbnail size pieces. It doesn't have to be a lot. I'm not going to bother because I don't feel like it makes too much of a difference with the fabric I've got. But definitely do it with the bodies. And again, so I've laid these on my foam. I've cut them out, and then afterwards I've gone ahead and cut the excess from the corners. Just like that. Then all we're going to do is sew each piece to its foam counterpart. Oh my gosh, you can tell it's been a while since I've done a video. It's sew it to its piece using a rough 1/4 inch seam allowance. So a nice long stitch length, a rough 1/4 inch in. And I'm going to do that with all 3. And then we can come back after and trim the excess away. So once you have attached your outer pieces to the foam, what we need to do is trim away the excess foam from the seam allowance because we don't want it there. Now, I've already done it on these pieces. You can see I have trimmed away the foam, and I'll show you on the flap. So I'm just going to lift up the foam with my fingers and nice flat scissors. I've trimmed the foam away. Non-pointy scissors are preferable because pointy ones get stuck in the foam, and trust me, it's a right pain. And this is all we're doing. Just like that. Missed a bit. And you do this trimming method on all 3 pieces, and that is your foam done. So you've got this nice soft structure now. And we can move on to our next part. For us, that is the flap. So take your finished outer flap piece and find your flap lining piece, and we're going to place them, no we're not, jumping ahead. Before we place them together, we are going to draw some guides for our stitching. I much prefer it if everything's equal. It makes my brain happy. And for me, there's nothing worse though when, you know, when you're sewing, it's very easy to go further than you need to, and then it all looks a bit skew. So I'm not drawing the full line. I don't need to, but if you want to, you can. I am drawing what I would call my pivot points. So you can do this on the outer piece or the lining piece, it doesn't matter. I don't know why I did that one, I don't need that one. So I know that when I sew down here, when I get to this point where they cross, I turn. And I know then that this is going to be beautiful. So now we can lay them right sides together. I will clip them together this time because I don't want them to shift about. I'm going to stitch them together using a regular seam allowance, but we're going to leave this top side open for turning it right side out. So all around in like a U-y shape, but leave the top open. Like that. So you can see I have done my points exactly on where the X's were. And before we turn right side out, I'm just going to trim away the points so that all the fabric doesn't bunch up when you turn it right side out. Right side out, and then carefully using whatever tool you wish, we're going to carefully push the points out from the inside. You don't want to pop all the way through, so don't use anything too pointy. Now if your fabric allows it, you can give this a good press, otherwise you're going to have to finger press. And I'm going to roll the seams because what I don't want to see is the lining fabric. So roll them. So that it all looks nice and even. Because sometimes, especially when using foam, you've got that thickness on this edge. And it likes to roll about. And we're going to top stitch. So whatever is your preferable, I'm going to continue the pattern. So mine is going to be the edge of my foot, which is somewhere between regular top stitch length and 1/4 inch. I haven't measured it. I don't know what it is. I'm going all around the outside, including this top edge. We're going all the way around this time, using your preferred top stitch width. That's the word I'm looking for. Like this. like this. So that is the flap done. Obviously we've got a lock to add on to it, but we'll do that at the end so we don't like scratch it or anything during construction. So the flap is done, that can be put aside, and we'll work on the final bits on our outer body. So to fit the lock onto our body, you need one of the outer panels. You also need the body part of your lock. So when your lock goes together, this is the part that goes in your flap. This part goes in the body. So put the flap part to the side where it won't get lost. So you've got the flap part, and most likely you have a washer. So what we're going to do is, of the top edge and of the bottom edge, we're going to find the centers and mark them within the seam allowance, like so. Then lay your ruler between the two. And measure up 1, 2, 3, 4 inches, like so. And I've just made a dot. What I'm just going to check is that that dot is perfectly centered between these seam allowances. It was just off, and that could be anything to do with the thickness of my pen, making the mark, where I've placed the ruler, but it needs to be centered, because when we have the lock on at the end, we add the flap, these points of the flap need to measure up to the seam. And you can see, if this mark is off, then your flap is going to be off. So it is worth a check that this mark is in between these seams. We just want to make sure it's nice and good. Nice and good. 2 happy words in 1 sentence. So washer is going on top of the mark we made, the good mark. And then I am marking where my prongs go. If you don't know where your prongs go, fold them nicely and place them on here. So actually these ones want to go there and there, not where I was going to put them. So once you made the marks where your prongs go, you can then cut them out using a seam ripper. Be careful, don't get carried away and cut half your bag off. And don't mark all over your bag like I have. Like so. Make sure it's the right way up. And pop it through the holes. Place on your washer. I don't want to scratch my lock doing this. So just bend these outwards. Like that. And then to protect the lining of the fabric, I am going to cover it with a piece of duct tape. Now I never know whether it's duct tape or duck tape, because obviously this is a brand and it's duct tape. I never know, but you know what I mean. I cover that so the sharp part of the lock won't go into the lining, or if you're rummaging in your bag, you shouldn't feel this. But that is the lock part done. I'm just going to place this to the side while we make our strap connectors. We've got two pieces that are 4" by 2". We need to make connectors that are 1" wide. And to do that, if your fabric allows, you can simply fold them in half long ways to find this center line. Now I can't fold my fabric, so I'm marking the center line. So you could fold it, press it, and then open it up, and the crease is your center line, or simply do what I just did. I am going to use double-sided tape. So again, if you're able to press your fabric, what you would do is not throw everything everywhere. Is bring the long raw edges in to meet your center line, and then give the fabric a good press. Now, as I said, I can't do that because this is faux leather. And then what we're going to do is top stitch down both long edges, and do this with both pieces. And then we've got this lovely 1" wide, the start of our strap connector. I have 2 top stitched strap connectors. Now this isn't the angle we want, so we are going to make it the angle we want. And if that doesn't sound like good English to you, it does to me. Bear with, and I will explain all. So what I've done is I have measured a 1/4 inch in, and then drawn a line to its opposite corner. 1/4 inch. Draw a line. And that is the shape we want. When we grab our rectangular rings, place one on each, and the raw edges are going to be enclosed when we fold them over. And what you'll end up with is these lovely angled strap connectors. And this angled, if I take that off now, I'm going to sew them together just along the edge, just to keep the ends together. Like that. And then when we take clips away, they're held in place. So take back your outer body panel. It can be this one or it could be the other one. It doesn't matter, but we're going to do it both connectors on the same piece so that you don't accidentally put two right ones on or two left ones. So take one of the outer body panels, and these need to be positioned not at all like what I've done there. That way. So they need to angle upwards, but we're going to position them 1.5 inches down. So do this whichever way works best for you. I am going to measure and mark because I never do. And the top of the connector is at that 1.5 inch mark. So if you do it like that, it's going to be too high. It's going to be too close to the top. There we go. I'm going to sew the connectors to the outer body panel using a regular stitch length, and we're going to back stitch at the start and the end because these are support stitches. They're there to add strength. So I'm going to use a regular stitch length and I'm going to back stitch. What I'm going to try and avoid is, I know it sounds like a right minefield now, I want to avoid any stitches I might have done already, because then we're going to lose strength. If there's too many stitches in one area, you actually lose strength. So back stitch a rough 1/4 inch in for strength. There we go. So our connector tabs are in, our body part of our lock is in, and we've made the flap. So that is all outer parts done. We can now go ahead on constructing the lining. So join me over in part 2, which is a separate video on the playlist, where we will construct the lining. We're keeping these videos short and sweet. That's just how we like it. So I'll see you in part 2. If you have any questions on the outer, drop me a message in the comments. See you in a sec.